Ever catch yourself thinking some people are like Benjamin Button out here, aging backwards? It's like they've got this secret formula for youth. And that's where those blue zones come in, right? Those places everyone's talking about where people seem to live forever. Okinawa, Sardinia, even Loma Linda right here in California. So today, we're diving deep into those blue zones, trying to figure out what's true, what's hype, and most importantly, is there anything we can actually learn from them? We're starting with, you guessed it, Wikipedia. Great for the basics, but we always got to remember anyone can edit that thing. So we'll be on the lookout for any fishy business. Okay, so blue zones. Wikipedia says they're basically regions where way more people than average are hitting 80 and beyond. They say it's all about lifestyle, but I don't know, seems kind of simplistic, right?
Yeah, it's definitely more complicated than that. Even Wikipedia throws in some skepticism. Like, they mention how researchers are still debating if these blue zones are really all they're cracked up to be. Take Okinawa, for example. It was one of the original blue zones. But get this, their average lifespan has actually dropped recently. Makes you wonder, what's going on there? Did something change? Or were those early claims exaggerated?
Okay, so right off the bat, it's not as simple as move there, live longer. Love it when a deep dive gets complicated. But before we go full skeptic, let's back up a sec. Wikipedia lists a few specific blue zones that researchers identified back in the early 2000s. Okinawa, we talked about that. But there's also Sardinia in Italy, Nicoya over in Costa Rica, and Ikaria in Greece. Man, just saying those names makes me want to book a flight. Did you know the name Blue Zones literally came from researchers circling these places on a map with a blue pen?
No way. Really? That's hilarious.
Yeah, like the original infographic, right? So we got our locations, but how do scientists even measure something as wild as exceptional longevity? What are they looking at?
Well, the Wikipedia article talks about two main ways they do it. One is this thing called the Extreme Longevity Index, or ELI for short. Sounds like a superhero ranking, right? Basically, they look at how many people born in a certain place and time period hit 100 compared to the total number of births. It gives them an idea of how likely someone from that area is to become a centenarian.
So higher ELI, more centenarian superheroes running around.
Exactly. Then there's the centenarian rate, or CR. That one's simpler. It's just the number of people out of 10,000 who live to G100, like a snapshot of how long a particular generation lived.
Gotcha. Now, this part I found super interesting. The Wikipedia article mentions how in Sardinia, the people living in the mountains were living even longer than those in the lowlands. And Sardinia is already known for its long-lived people. Any idea why that is?
It's definitely intriguing. The article doesn't give a definitive answer, unfortunately, but it does throw out some possibilities. Could be genetics, something unique to the mountain communities, or maybe it's their traditional diet up there. They even mention that the physical activity of living in a mountainous region could play a role. Really shows how much we still don't know about how genes, lifestyle, and environment all mix together to affect how long we live. We need way more research.
Right. It's like a real-life detective story. Those Sardinian mountains hold the clues to a longer life, maybe? I'm hooked. But gotta stay grounded here. Time for a dose of reality.
Yeah.
The Wikipedia article does mention some issues with the whole blue zone idea. Like a lot of the claims haven't been backed up by serious scientific studies. There's even a quote from this Dr. Harriet Hall. She writes for Science-Based Medicine. She points out that a lot of the diet advice linked to blue zones is based more on guessing than on actual evidence from controlled trials. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, she's got a point. It's like, just because people in a certain area live a long time and they also happen to eat a certain way, it doesn't automatically mean one causes the other, right?
Right.
There's got to be more to it. And without those really controlled studies, it's almost impossible to pinpoint what's really making the difference. Like, is it the diet, the exercise, something else?
It's so tempting to just see a place with all these healthy old folks and think, boom, I'll just copy them and I'll live forever too.
Exactly. But it's way more complicated than that.
Speaking of complicated, Wikipedia also brought up this thing called centenarian demographics. What is that exactly, and how does it relate to blue zones?
It's basically about taking a closer look at how populations age. Like, how accurate are the numbers we have on centenarians? That's super important for this whole blue zone thing, right? The article uses Okinawa as an example again. They say that a lot of birth records were destroyed during World War II, so now it's hard to be totally sure about the ages of some of the oldest people there.
Oh, wow. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it makes you wonder.
So if those records are messed up, it can make it seem like people are living longer than they really are.
Exactly. That throws a wrench in the whole thing. What if there are actually way fewer centenarians in some of these blue zones than we thought? What does that mean for the whole concept?
Whoa, yeah, good point. Like, imagine trying to bake a cake, but you don't measure anything accurately,
Hmm.
you might end up with something that looks kind of like a cake, but then you taste it, and it's
Yeah.
like, nope, something's not right here.
Hmm. And speaking of things not being what they seem, the article also mentions centenarian fraud. Didn't we touch on this a little earlier? What are the reasons behind that? Is it always about, like, trying to scam the system for money?
Not always, no.
Mm.
Sometimes it's just mistakes in the data, you know? Like the article mentions some people might lie about their age to get a bigger pension or something.
Right,
Or
right.
sometimes families might not be totally accurate about a deceased relative's age, maybe to avoid paperwork or because of cultural reasons. It's
Interesting.
a whole other layer to this whole thing. It's like, wow, so many factors.
And it shows how important it is to be really careful and not just believe everything we hear about these blue zones.
Totally. But even with all that skepticism,
Mm-hmm.
there's still something so captivating about these places, you know? Why do you think people are still so drawn to this idea of blue zones?
I think it's because deep down, we all want to know the secret to a long and healthy life. These places, they're like these far-off lands where people seem to have it all figured out.
Right, like they have the map.
Exactly. But the reality is always way more complicated.
Right, it's not like there's one magic thing you can do.
It's about understanding the bigger picture.
And that's what's so cool about this deep dive, right? We're
Wow.
really getting into those complexities.
While the idea of blue zones is super interesting, we've got to be critical thinkers about it.
Yes, question everything. But that doesn't mean we can't learn anything from them, right?
Exactly. Even if we don't take the whole live to 120 thing literally, there might be some valuable lessons we can take away from these places.
Okay, so what are those lessons? What can we actually learn from these blue zones, even if we're not all going to move there and become centenarians?
Well, it seems like most of these blue zones, even though they're spread all over the world, they've got some things in common when it comes to lifestyle.
Yeah.
We're talking strong social connections, a sense of purpose, staying active, and eating lots of plants.
Yeah, okay, I mean, that's not exactly groundbreaking, right?
Yeah.
We all know we should be eating our veggies and hitting the gym.
Right, exactly. But maybe it's how these things all fit together in these communities that makes the difference. It's not just one thing, it's the whole package deal.
Like a synergy thing.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Take those social connections, for example, having close relationships, feeling like you belong. That might not seem directly related to living longer, but studies show it's super important for both mental and physical health.
It's like they say, the more the merrier,
Right.
right? Maybe that applies to birthdays, too.
Yeah. Right. And don't forget about purpose. A lot of people in these blue zones, they have this sense of meaning in their lives, whether it's from their work, their family, or just being part of a community. And that, having a purpose, that can really motivate you to live a healthier, more fulfilling life.
It's funny, we usually think of aging as this purely physical thing. But these blue zones, they make you realize that our social lives, our emotions, even our sense of purpose, it all plays a role.
Absolutely. It's all connected.
It's holistic, right?
Totally. And yeah, we definitely need more research to figure out exactly how much each of these things affects lifespan, but I think there are some valuable lessons here.
For sure. Even if we can't all just pack up and move to a blue zone, we can still try to apply some of these ideas to our own lives, right?
Exactly.
So instead of searching for some magical fountain of youth, maybe it's about making those small changes. Like, how can we strengthen our connections with our community? What brings us joy? What gives us that sense of purpose? And hey, maybe try adding a few more veggies to our plates, right?
Exactly. It's about taking charge of our own health and well-being.
We might not be able to control everything when it comes to how long we live,
Yeah, there's always going to be some things we can't change.
but we can definitely make choices that give us the best shot at a long, healthy life.
100%.
I love that. It's empowering. It's not about some quick fix. It's about making smart choices that pay off over time.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So we've journeyed into the world of blue zones, learned about these incredible places where people seem to defy age. But more importantly, we've uncovered some clues, some hints about how we can all live healthier, more fulfilling lives. Now, it's your turn to take the reins. Imagine for a second you get to design your own personal blue zone. What does it look like? What matters most to you? What changes would you make to create a recipe for a longer, healthier, and happier life? Let those questions simmer as you go about your day. Who knows? You might just stumble upon the blueprint to your very own blue zone. That's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for exploring with us.